emails, but I think I saw your Slack come through. Okay. Writing requires structure, systems, and support. Everything requires structure, systems, and support, but we're going to talk about writing for right now. Structure is like having a set schedule and a routine because it gives you the structure of what to do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. Systems are like, what are your processes? What are your like worksheets? What are your softwares? What are the things that help you to produce whatever the thing is that you're trying to produce? So a writing process would be a system. Another word for systems is like accommodations, if that's a language, if that language helps more. And then support. Support is accountability. So who are the people and what feedback mechanisms do you have to make sure that you show up and do what you said you're going to do? Before we get into what the scholar writer routine is, I want to revisit some of my favorite writers, Stephen King. Oh, Stephen. Anybody, any Stephen King fans? Since we're in the 90s, because I feel like that was his moment, okay? In the 90s. Somebody who's written over 65 books, 200 short stories. If you don't know who Stephen King is, could we talk? If you don't know who this is, but like number two, very, very dark mind, but I love it. But if you ever read a Stephen King novel, okay, it's like 600, 700. I just feel like it's a huge book. It's a door opener, like door stop. You like, let's do this book. Great movies. My point, I like to use him as an example because of how large his books are and because of how much he has produced. Because what seasoned writers would tell you, I don't produce this much without a process, without a system in place. So he typically writes 3 drafts per book. The first draft, he says, is for him. The door is closed. He's not talking to nobody about his ideas. He's just putting words on the page. He's not worried about structure. He's not worried about technique. He just putting words on the page. He says that he's just writing whatever he sees the characters doing in his mind. So he's not really worried about the technical pieces. That's the first draft. The second draft is like, all right, I got to write this for the audience. I got to write this for my reader. How do I edit and restructure it for the reader? And then the third draft is him and the publishing company being like, formatting good to go, any extra like historical pieces we need to add, any extra details. That's his system. He writes 4 hours every day. He said, of course, he might get sick or like traveling something, but for the most part, he writes 4 hours every day. It's just his routine. And he focuses on producing 6 pages a day. This is important. This is the outcome. 4 hours a day, 6 pages a day. When he gets to draft number 2, that's when he invites his wife into the conversation. But before they, like, I can't talk to you, girl. And 2 and 3, his editor. But he talked a lot about, it's not so much about rewriting full drafts as it is about revisions. He says most of his 4-hour days are focused on revisions. The point of this is we simply haven't been taught to give ourselves enough time to sit with a draft. We haven't been taught that writing is a process requiring multiple drafts. And that's because in our education system, we get these assignments and then we turn it in one time and then we don't usually get them back. Which is why I love a class that's like, we're going to work on one paper for the entire semester, because that is more indicative of the for real writing process. In revisions, you're going to, I say the rule is like for every hour of writing, just expect at least a minimum of 3 hours of editing, like revisions. Sitting with those words, reworking it. Is it clear? Do I need to put examples in? This is why I'm such a fan of a shitty paragraph, because we just need words on a page so that we can do the editing part. So we can have enough time and energy left over for editing, for polishing, for formatting. Most of your feedback that you're getting from your chair is about editing and revisions. My theory is every Gen X person read a Stephen King book way too young. You know, the book, the movies, too young. And that's why we are. And you know what, I'm on the, you know, I'm there. What's it called between Gen X and millennial? Yes, that's where I'm at. I speak both languages, but I don't know why they would allow me to watch all his movies and read his books at a young age. Nobody, nobody was concerned. Nobody. Okay. Auntie Maya, did I not put it on here? No. Okay. She has written over, I believe it's 49 books. She's written over 49 books, tons and tons of essays and poetry and children's books and speeches and all the words, all the words. She too had a routine. This was her daily routine. She would wake up at 5:30. Her husband would leave. She would leave. She had an apartment that she would go to every day, and that was her writing apartment because that is how important environment is. She had a whole apartment, or sometimes she was like book out hotel rooms for months at a time. But it's about going to the same place at the same time, following the same routine, so that she could stay in flow in her writing. She would write 7 to 2, or well, it would stop at 12:30. She would check in with herself to see, do I still need to keep writing or can I end for the day? But no matter what happened, she cut it off at 2 o'clock so that she would have enough time to go home, get ready, take a shower, prepare for dinner for her husband to come. They would eat, they would catch up with each other's days, and then she would either spend the evening reworking some stuff or writing some notes for her next writing session. That if it's going badly, I stay until 12:30. If it's going well, I stay as long as it's going well. It's lonely and it's marvelous. So it's lonely and it's marvelous because the other part of the writing process that people get hung up on is it's lonely, it's boring. Yep, writing. When I come home at 2, I read over what I've written that day and then I try to put it out of my mind. I don't invite comments from anyone but my editor, but hearing it out loud is good. She'll read when she at night after dinner, she used to read her writing to her husband, but he was not allowed to make comments. He could only listen and sit there and smile and be happy. And she'll hear herself out loud, which is why I like to hear my writing out loud because it might sound different than the way you wrote it or you thought it was going to sound when you wrote it. And she just makes notes and she said, I'll straighten it out in the morning. And that was her routine. Let me come back. I hope you've noticed that they have routines. Stephen King would be in his house, in his home office, but it's typically a space that they go to all the time. The environment is the same. How they get started in the writing process is the same. How they determine when they're done, there's a system. How they handle feedback, there's a system. I'm just pointing these things out for you. And this is why I structured the program in the way that I did, because I was like, nobody told me what to do. I need a system. And I just happen, I know astrologically what the reason is, but I just happen to have like a superpower. I create systems for myself. Doesn't mean I know how to follow them or be consistent. I just know how to I can create an accommodation in a minute. It's just childhood trauma. It's a gift from childhood trauma. So we'll just say it like that.